Captain Jackson Rivers gripped the controls of his patrol vessel as warning lights flashed red across the dashboard. The ship shuddered violently, throwing him against his restraints as he fought to maintain control. Through the viewport, the alien, world of Zerion 7 rushed toward him like a hungry beast, its purple sky streaked with silver clouds that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "Come on, baby, don't fail me now," he muttered through gritted teeth, his calloused hands dancing across the emergency controls. The engine sputtered and died with a sickening whine, leaving only the whistle of wind through damaged hull plates and the terrible certainty of gravity's pull. The impact came like the fist of an angry god. Metal screamed against stone, and Jackson's world exploded into spinning chaos of sparks and pain. When consciousness finally crawled back to him, he found himself hanging upside down in his pilot's seat, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. The acrid smell of burning electronics filled his nostrils, mixed with something else, something sweet and floral that had no business being in a crashed military vessel. He fumbled with his harness release, dropping to what had once been the ceiling with a grunt that echoed through the twisted wreckage. His ribs protested the movement, but nothing seemed broken. Years of combat training had taught him to assess damage quickly, and right now he was lucky to be breathing. The ship, however, was beyond salvation. Smoke poured from ruptured power conduits, and the hull had cracked open like an egg, revealing the alien landscape beyond. Jackson retrieved his sidearm and emergency pack before crawling through the breach into the strange new world. The air was thin but breathable, carrying scents of exotic flowers and something that reminded him of ozone after a thunderstorm. The gravity felt lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a small leap. Around him stretched a forest of crystalline trees that chimed softly in the breeze, their translucent branches catching and refracting the light of Zerion 7's twin suns into dancing rainbows. It was beautiful, he had to admit, even as his soldiers' instincts cataloged potential threats and escape routes. But it was the sound that made him freeze, his hand moving instinctively to his weapon. Someone was crying, the sound soft but unmistakably female, coming from somewhere deeper in the crystal forest. Every tactical manual he'd ever read screamed at him to avoid contact with unknown entities, but there was something in that sound that tugged at his heart. It wasn't just sadness, it was despair so profound that it seemed to resonate through the very air. Against his better judgment, Jackson found himself moving toward the sound, his boots crunching softly on fallen crystal leaves that tinkled like wind chimes. He found her in a clearing where the crystal trees formed a natural amphitheater, their branches creating a cathedral of light and shadow. She sat with her back against the largest tree, and Jackson's breath caught in his throat at the sight of her. She was unmistakably alien, but beautiful in a way that made his heart race. Her skin had a subtle blue-silver sheen that seemed to shift and flow like liquid moonlight, and her hair cascaded around her shoulders in waves of deep indigo that sparkled with what looked like captured starlight. But it was her eyes that held him captive. Large and expressive, they were the color of amethysts, and they regarded him with a mixture of fear and defiance that spoke of nobility under pressure. She was wounded, he realized, seeing the torn fabric of her flowing garments and the way she held her left arm protectively against her body. "Stay back," she said in perfect, if-accented English. Her voice like music played on crystal bells. "I warn you, human. I am not defenseless." Jackson raised his hands slowly, showing empty palms. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Jackson Rivers, captain in the human colonial marines. My ship crashed and I heard you crying." She studied him with those remarkable eyes, taking in his torn uniform, the blood on his face, the way he moved with controlled caution. "You are far from your territory, Captain Rivers. This world is claimed by the Crystalline Empire." "I didn't exactly plan to be here," Jackson replied, keeping his voice gentle. "Look, you're hurt, and I have medical supplies. Whatever problems our species might have with each other, they don't apply to individuals who need help." Something in his tone seemed to reach her, because some of the tension went out of her shoulders. "You would help me? Even knowing what I am?" "What you are is someone who's in pain," Jackson said simply. "That's all that matters to me right now." She was quiet for a long moment, those amethyst eyes searching his face as if looking for deception. Finally, she nodded slightly. I am Zephyra Nightwind, daughter of the Crystal Throne, and yes, I am hurt, though not in the ways you might think. Jackson approached slowly, pulling his medical kit from his pack. As he knelt beside her, he caught her scent, that same sweet floral fragrance he'd noticed in the wreckage, but stronger, now more intoxicating. It made his head spin in a way that had nothing to do with his crash injuries. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her injured arm. When she nodded, he gently examined the wound. It was a deep cut, but clean, as if made by something very sharp. As he cleaned and bandaged it, he couldn't help but notice how her skin seemed to glow with its own inner light, warm to the touch despite its cool appearance. "Why are you here alone?" he asked as he worked. "Shouldn't someone of your station have guards, attendants?" Zephyra's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "I am fleeing, Captain Rivers. Fleeing from a marriage I do not want, to a male I despise, for reasons that have nothing to do with love and everything to do with political power." "So you ran away," Jackson said, not judging. "That took courage. Or foolishness. I am not certain there is a difference." She watched him work with fascination, as if she'd never seen such gentleness from a warrior before. "You are not what I expected from your species." "What did you expect?" "Brutality, aggression, the desire to conquer and consume everything in your path." She tilted her head, studying him. "But you have gentle hands." Their eyes met, and Jackson felt something electric pass between them, a connection that transcended species barriers. Maybe we're not so different after all. A distant roar echoed through the crystal forest, low and threatening. Zephyra's eyes widened with fear. "They have found me," she whispered. "Prince Vorthon's hunters. We must move." "We?" Jackson asked, already helping her to her feet. "You cannot stay here, Captain Rivers. When they find your crashed vessel, they will assume you are here to capture me for ransom. Vorthon's mercy is legendary for its absence." Another roar, closer this time. Jackson could hear the crash of something large moving through the crystal trees. He made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Then we run together," he said, taking her uninjured hand in his. "I know a thing or two about survival." As they fled deeper into the alien forest, Zephyra's hand warm in his despite her cool skin, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that his crash on Zerion 7 hadn't been an accident. It had been destiny. The crystalline forest seemed to pulse with life as Jackson and Zephyra moved through its gleaming depths. The twin suns of Zerion 7 had begun their descent toward the horizon, casting everything in shades of amber and rose that made Zephyra's skin shimmer like liquid starlight. They had been running for hours, and despite the lighter gravity, Jackson could feel the strain in his muscles. "There," Zephyra whispered, pointing toward a cluster of larger crystal formations ahead. "The singing stones, we can rest there safely." As they approached, Jackson heard what she meant. The crystals emitted a low harmonic hum that seemed to resonate in his bones, creating a natural barrier of sound that would mask their presence. Zephyra led him into a hollow between three towering crystal spires, their surfaces smooth as glass, and warm to the touch. "They won't be able to track us here," she said, sinking gracefully to the ground. "The harmonics interfere with their hunting sensors." Jackson settled beside her, close enough to catch that intoxicating floral scent that seemed to be her natural perfume. In the crystal-filtered light, she looked ethereal, like something from a dream. "How long do we have?" "Until dawn, perhaps longer if we're fortunate." Zephyra's eyes met his, and he saw something vulnerable there, beneath the royal composure. "I should not have involved you in this, Captain Rivers. Your people and mine are not allies." "Call me Jackson," he said softly, "and maybe it's time that changed." She studied his face in the gentle crystal light. "You truly mean that, don't you? Even knowing what helping me might cost you?" "What's it going to cost me?" he asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Everything," she said simply. "Your career, your standing with your own kind, possibly your life. Prince Vorthon does not forgive those who interfere with his desires. Jackson reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched her cheek. Her skin was incredibly soft, and he felt her shiver at the contact. Some things are worth the risk. The moment stretched between them, electric and full of possibility. Zephyr's eyes dropped to his lips, then back to his eyes, and Jackson felt his heart hammering against his ribs. She was so beautiful it made his chest ache, but it was more than that. There was something about her, a strength wrapped in gentleness, a fierce intelligence that called to something deep in his soul. "You don't know what you're saying," she whispered, but she didn't pull away from his touch. "I know exactly what I'm saying." His thumb traced across her cheekbone, marveling at the way her skin seemed to glow brighter at his touch. "I know that in the space of a few hours, you've become the most important thing in my universe." Her breath caught, and for a moment, he thought she might close the distance between them. Instead, she gently took his hand and moved it away from her face, though she didn't let go of it. "There are things you don't understand about my people, about what I am," she said. "The crystals respond to me, Jackson. I am bonded to them in ways your science cannot explain. That is why Vorthon wants me, why this marriage was arranged. With me as his consort, he would control the crystal networks across 17 worlds. "Show me," Jackson said simply. Zephyrah looked surprised. "Show you? You said the crystals respond to you. I want to understand." After a moment's hesitation, Zephyrah placed her free hand against the crystal wall behind them. Immediately the soft humming grew stronger, and veins of light began to pulse through the formation, spreading outward like a heartbeat made visible. The glow intensified, and suddenly Jackson could see the entire network, connections of light stretching as far as the eye could see through the crystal forest. "My God," he breathed. "It's a communication system, maybe more than that." "Much more," Zephyrah confirmed, and there was pride in her voice now. "Defense networks, environmental controls, even faster than light messaging across the galaxy. The crystals are alive in their own way, and they sing to those who can hear them." The display faded as she removed her hand, but the wonder of it remained in Jackson's mind. "No wonder he wants to marry you. The military applications alone." "Yes. And if he succeeds, if he forces this bond upon me, every world in the crystalline empire becomes his to command." She turned to face him fully. "That is why I ran, Jackson. Not just for my own freedom, but for the freedom of billions." The weight of what she was telling him settled on Jackson's shoulders, but it didn't change anything. If anything, it made his resolve stronger. "Then we make sure he doesn't get you." "We?" She smiled, and it transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. "You keep saying that word. I mean it every time." He shifted closer to her, drawn by something he couldn't name. "Zephyrah, I know this is crazy. I know we've only just met, and I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is impossible, but I can't walk away from you." Her amethyst eyes searched his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe sometimes the universe puts two people together for a reason. Maybe sometimes love doesn't care about species or politics or the impossible odds against it." "Love?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Yes," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know it's insane, but I'm falling in love with you, Zephyra Nightwind. Has been since the moment I saw you in that clearing." For a long moment she didn't speak. Then, slowly, she reached up and cupped his face in her hands. "You beautiful, foolish human," she whispered. "Don't you know that I've been falling too?" When their lips met, it was like touching lightning. The crystals around them blazed with sudden light, responding to the intensity of their connection. Zephyrah's kiss was soft and sweet, but with an underlying fire that made Jackson's blood sing. She tasted like starlight and promises, and when they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "The crystals," Jackson said, looking around at the still glowing formations. "They respond to strong emotions," Zephyrah explained, her cheeks flushed with a deeper blue. Joy, fear, love. They amplify what we feel. Then they know, he said, pulling her closer. They know how I feel about you. She nestled against his chest, and he marveled at how perfectly she fit there. This cannot last, you know. Even if we escape Vorthon, even if we find a way off this world, our people will never accept this. Then maybe it's time our people learn to accept new things, Jackson said, stroking her starlight hair. Maybe it's time for change. They held each other as the twin suns set, painting the crystal forest in shades of deep purple and silver. For a few precious hours, they existed in a bubble outside of time and politics, and the harsh realities of their situation. They talked about their worlds, their dreams, their fears. Zephyra told him about the crystal gardens of her home palace, about music that could make stones weep and poetry written in pure light. Jackson spoke of Earth's blue, oceans and golden sunsets, of the way rain smelled on summer mornings and the sound of children's laughter in city parks. I want to see your world, Zephyra said softly. I want to feel this rain you speak of. And I want to hear the crystal songs of your people, Jackson replied. Maybe someday we will. But even as they dreamed of impossible futures, the sound of hunting horns echoed in the distance, growing closer. Their time was running out. He's found our trail, Zephyra said, tension returning to her voice. We must reach the ancient temple before dawn. It's the only place on this world where even Vorthon cannot follow. How far? Jackson asked, already helping her to her feet. A day's journey through the crystal canyons. It will be dangerous, but it's our only hope. As they prepared to leave their sanctuary, Jackson caught her hand. Whatever happens, know that these hours with you have been the best of my life. Zephyra rose on her toes and kissed him again, soft and quick, but full of promise. Then let us make sure we have many more. Together they stepped out of the singing stones and into the night, their love a bright flame against the gathering darkness. Dawn broke over the crystal canyons of Zarian 7 like shattered diamonds scattered across velvet, and Jackson felt his heart sink as he saw what awaited them at the ancient temple. Prince Vorthon's forces had arrived first, their dark ships hovering, like storm clouds above the magnificent crystalline structure that rose from the canyon floor, like a frozen waterfall of pure light. We're too late, Zephyra whispered beside him, her voice heavy with despair. They lay hidden behind a ridge of crystal formations, watching as armored figures deployed around the temple's base. He has blocked the only sanctuary left to us. Jackson studied the deployment through his tactical scope, counting at least 50 soldiers in advanced combat armor. At the center of it all stood Prince Vorthon himself, a towering figure in midnight black battle gear that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Even from this distance, Jackson could sense the cruelty that radiated from the alien prince, like heat from a furnace. Maybe not, Jackson said, an idea forming in his mind. You said the temple responds to you, right? That even Vorthon can't follow you inside? Yes, but we cannot reach it. His soldiers surround every entrance. What if we created a distraction? Something big enough to draw them away? Zephyra looked at him with those remarkable amethyst eyes. What do you have in mind? Jackson smiled, grimly. Something very human, something very stupid, and something that might just work. He activated his emergency beacon, the one designed to call for rescue from any nearby human vessels. Within moments, his comm crackled to life. This is Lieutenant Ember Cross of the patrol ship Meridian. Captain Rivers, is that you? We've been searching for you for 2 days. Ember, thank God, Jackson replied. I'm alive, but I need immediate extraction, and I need it loud. Sir, I don't understand. Trust me, Cross. Come in hot, come in fast, and make as much noise as possible. I'll explain later. As they waited, Zephyra moved closer to him, her body pressed against his side. You're calling your people here. This will mean war between our species. Maybe, Jackson admitted, or maybe it will mean something else entirely. The Meridian screamed down from the purple sky like a falling star, its engines roaring with barely controlled power. Ember Cross had always been the best pilot in their unit, and she proved it now, diving between the crystal spires with impossible precision while laying down suppressing fire that sent Vorthan's soldiers scrambling for cover. "Now," Jackson said, grabbing Zephyra's hand. "While they're distracted." They ran down the canyon wall, leaping from crystal outcropping to crystal outcropping, with the enhanced agility that Xerion 7's lighter gravity provided. Behind them the battle raged as more human ships arrived, drawn by the beacon's call. But Jackson only had eyes for the temple entrance, now clear as Vorthan's forces repositioned to deal with the aerial threat. They were 10 meters from the entrance, when Prince Vorthan himself appeared, blocking their path. Up close he was even more intimidating, standing nearly 8 feet tall with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with inner fire. His voice when he spoke was like grinding stone. "So the human dog reveals himself at last. You have caused me considerable inconvenience, Captain Rivers." "Good," Jackson replied, stepping protectively in front of Zephyra. "I was hoping to ruin your day." Vorthan's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your bravado is admirable but foolish. You cannot defeat me, human, and you cannot save her." "Maybe not," Jackson said, drawing his sidearm, "but I can try." The fight was brutal and brief. Vorthan moved with inhuman speed, his crystalline blade carving through the air where Jackson had been standing moments before. But Jackson had advantages. Too human unpredictability and the desperate strength that comes from protecting someone you love. He rolled, fired, dodged, and struck back with a ferocity that surprised even himself. Still, it wasn't enough. Vorthan's blade found its mark, slicing deep across Jackson's chest and dropping him to his knees. The alien prince raised his weapon for the killing blow. "No!" Zephyra's cry echoed through the canyon, and suddenly every crystal in sight blazed with brilliant light. She stepped forward, and Jackson saw her as she truly was, not just a refugee princess but a force of nature, power radiating from her like heat from a star. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the very air vibrate. "I am the heir of crystals, the last singer of the ancient song, and I claim this one as mine." Vorthan snarled. "You are my betrothed. You belong to me." "I belong to no one," Zephyra replied, and her hand found Jackson's, their fingers intertwining. The moment their skin touched, the temple behind them came alive with such brilliant radiance that it could be seen from orbit. What happened next would be remembered in the histories of both species. The ancient crystal network of Xerion 7, dormant for millennia, suddenly awakened. Not just on this world, but across the entire sector, 17 civilizations found their crystal technologies blazing with new life and purpose. And at the center of it all stood a human and an alien, their love the key that unlocked possibilities neither species had imagined. The power surge was too much for Vorthan's technology. His soldiers' weapons failed, their armor shut down, their ships fell from the sky in controlled crashes that hurt no one but left them stranded. The prince himself stood frozen, his crystalline blade now nothing more than decorative metal. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No," Zephyra said, helping Jackson to his feet despite his wounds. "This is love, something you have never understood." Lieutenant Ember Cross landed her ship nearby, her weapons trained on the now helpless alien forces. She was a striking woman with short auburn hair and green eyes that missed nothing, and Jackson could see her tactical mind working as she assessed the situation. "Captain," she said, stepping out of her cockpit, "are you all right? And is someone going to explain to me why every piece of crystal tech in the sector just lit up like a Christmas tree?" "It's a long story, Cross," Jackson said, leaning against Zephyra for support. "But the short version is that I think we just solved the war." Over the following hours, as more ships from both species arrived to investigate the phenomenon, the truth became clear. The crystal network hadn't just been activated, it had been transformed. Where once it had been a tool of control and conquest, it now served as a bridge between worlds, a communication system that allowed unprecedented cooperation and understanding. Prince Vorthan, stripped of his technological advantages and facing the united displeasure of 17 crystal-dependent worlds, was forced to agree to a ceasefire and negotiations. The arranged marriage was dissolved, the expansionist policies abandoned, and a new era of cooperation began. But perhaps the most important change was smaller and more personal. 6 months later, on a garden world that belonged to neither species, but had been jointly terraformed by both, Captain Jackson Rivers and Princess Sapphira Nightwind stood hand in hand beneath an arch of living crystal that sang their names in harmonies too beautiful for words. "I still can't believe they actually agreed to this," Jackson said, adjusting the formal collar of his dress uniform. The wedding was being broadcast across both empires, a symbol of the new alliance. "Believe it," Zephyra replied, radiant in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. "When your Lieutenant Cross threatened to personally hunt down anyone who interfered with our happiness, even the most stubborn politicians decided discretion was the better part of valor." Jackson laughed. "Remind me to give her a promotion." The ceremony was unlike anything either species had ever seen. Human traditions blended with crystalline rituals, creating something entirely new and beautiful. When they exchanged vows, the crystal arch above them resonated with such pure joy that flowers bloomed spontaneously in the garden around them. "Do you, Jackson Rivers, take this woman to be your wife, to love and cherish across all the stars and all the years that lie ahead?" "I do," Jackson said, his voice strong and sure. "Forever and always." "And do you, Zephyra Nightwind, take this man to be your husband, to stand beside him through whatever the universe may bring?" "I do," she replied, tears of happiness sparkling like diamonds on her cheeks, "in this life and any other." When they kissed, the crystal network across 17 worlds chimed in celebration, a song of love that echoed from star to star. Later, as they danced at their reception under the light of 3 moons, Zephyra looked up at her new husband with wonder in her amethyst eyes. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Crashing on Zarian 7, getting caught up in all of this?" Jackson spun her gently, marveling at how perfectly she moved in his arms. "Are you kidding? Best crash landing I ever made." As the night wore on and the celebration continued around them, 2 species that had been enemies learned to be friends, and the universe became a little brighter for the love that had brought them together. In the end, it hadn't been politics or power that saved them all. It had been something much simpler and much more powerful. 2 hearts that refused to let differences divide them. 2 souls that found each other across the darkness between stars and chose to build something beautiful together. The crystal network sang their song across the galaxy, a melody of hope and love that would echo for generations to come.